Hello, I'm Mark Manson. I'm here from the United States. Eu falo pouco português, mas meu português é merda. I will proceed in English. So I want to start with a game, actually. You know, we've all been sitting in this hot room. It smells like shit. So everybody stand up. Stand up. And partner up and grab each other's hands like you're shaking hands. Now, hold on to the other guy's hand and stick out your finger like this. Okay? No. Yeah, like that. So the hands that you're holding, like, do this. Okay, so we're gonna play a game. Every time you touch your finger to the other guy's shoulder, you get 1 point. But wait. Don't hurt each other. Don't hurt each other, alright? We're gonna see who can get the most points. Okay, stop! Don't kill each other. Alright, you can sit down. Alright, so who scored a point? Who scored a point? No, that didn't count. Who scored 3 points? 10 points? 20 points? How did you do it?
He's like super weak.
Alright, I'm going to show you guys how you can get as many points here. So, come on here.
I'm a warrior.
Alright. So here's how you win this game. No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. See? He gets 50 points, I get 50 points, we just sit there and do this. Does that make sense? The point is that sometimes we're so focused on scoring for ourselves, and we spend so much time resisting the other person, pushing for what we want, we don't even notice that if we do what we both want, we can score as much as we want. Does it make sense? So a lot of times we see things in terms of competition, see things in terms of winning something for ourselves, when if we actually just take the other person into account and pay attention to what they want, we can both score as much as we want. So obviously I'm here to talk about women. Now, women are these things, so there's these things called humans, and about 50% of them are women. And women pretty much want the same things as we do. They want sex, they want intimacy, they want to feel awesome, they want somebody to give them orgasms, they want to wake up in the morning and say, that was a fucking awesome night. They want all the same things that we want. It's just that we go about it with slightly different strategies. And so, what I'm here today to explain is that while a lot of pickup advice is teaching you how to push against the other person's arm, against the woman's arm, to score a point for yourself, I'm here to teach you how to just cooperate and get as much as you want on your own. Does that make sense? So, just a brief bio about me. I was a loser in high school. I've got a pretty typical story for people who come to pick up. Never had any luck with the girls. Every girl I liked, I would dream and fantasize about all these romantic things, and it would take me about a year to tell them that I liked them. And of course they're like, oh, you're such a nice friend, but no, I'm gonna go fuck this asshole. And this kept happening over and over again. So first girlfriend in college. And to me, the world was perfect. This is the girl I love. This is the girl I'm going to marry. We're going to be together forever. Everything's going to be amazing. And of course, she went and fucked some asshole. And this really fucked me up. Like, obviously I was really upset about it. I was very confused. Everything I thought I knew about women, thought I knew about sex and love, all of a sudden, I realized that I was wrong. Or at least I didn't know what I was doing. So it was around this time that I found The Game by Neil Strauss. And I got involved in the whole pickup thing. And I did the whole thing. I did the, put on like the boa. I learned the magic tricks and memorized like jealous girlfriend stories. And I started going out and approaching. And it was a complete disaster. It was terrible. But I was very fortunate, and then I got an important lesson early on. And this lesson had to do with performance, and it had to do with needs. And it happened one night. I was in a bar. I was talking to 3 cute girls. I was trying to do I was terrible at magic. I was horrible at it. And I was trying to do a magic trick with a coin. And it was one of these tricks where like you make a coin disappear or something. And I kept dropping the coin. And I felt like an idiot. And I dropped it like 2 or 3 times in a row, and the girls were like, and then finally, I can tell they start to walk off. One of them was like, come on, let's go. Forget this guy. And I'm like, wait. I got a question. Who lies more, men or women? And they just rolled their eyes, and one of the girls looked at me, and she said, you're kind of cute. You should be normal next time. I was like, fuck. What have I been doing for 6 months? But I figured out that I was lucky and that I only spent 6 months following that. And so then I got into the whole kind of natural game thing. I decided, I could take the principles of pickup and just apply it to my personality. I can be dominant, I can lead, and I can tease and qualify and do all these things, but I can just do it in my normal conversation. And I started doing that, and it started to work. And I started having sex. Yay! And I started having sex with girls, but something started happening. And that was, girls were getting confused ideas about me. They thought that I liked them a lot more or less than I did. Girls I liked a lot, it turned out didn't like me at all. Girls that I didn't care about started calling me 40 times a day. And it presented a whole new level of problems. Suddenly, okay, I'm having sex, but now I have a headache every day because there's some sort of drama going on in my life. And it was around this time, actually, that I started traveling to different cultures. And I know that here in Portugal, you're a different culture, but I mean, compared to like Asia or, Argentina, it's much smaller between the US and Europe. But I started traveling these different cultures, and I started noticing things. I tried to do my same teases and my same games, and the girls would just kind of look at me like had no idea what I was doing or why I was doing it. And I realized that all of this game that I learned was really just culturally specific to the college girls that I picked up in Boston. And so I didn't know what to do. So I was like, well, I'm only in this country for a few weeks. I'm drunk. I may as well just start telling these girls everything I think and feel. So I did. I started saying, oh, you're beautiful. I'm leaving in 2 weeks. We should go home and have sex. And they were like, okay. Let me tell my friends I'm leaving. I was like, whoa, wait a second. That's not supposed to happen. But it kept happening. And then I went back to the United States, and I was like, well, obviously I need to get my game back. But sure enough, I went back back to the United States, and I started talking to American girls. I said, you know, this bar is kind of lame. Like, we should go somewhere by ourselves, make out for a while. They're like, okay. Wow, really? Okay. Why is this working? And at this point, I had been coaching for a few years, and I'd been noticing a lot of the same problems in a lot of my clients and a lot of the guys I was working with. And basically, it was that you could teach them success, but it was only for a temporary amount of time. So you could teach a guy to be successful for the first 10 minutes, or the first hour. You could even teach him to be successful for a same night lay, or a day two. But eventually, that old self, that old needy self of yours, comes back, and things get messed up. How many people here have experienced that? You go out, you do your thing, you're killing it, and then all of a sudden you're on your second date, and you're like, wow, I'm a loser again. And that's the problem. That's the first problem. And the problem is that pickup is typically taught as a performance. You know, it's the whole fake it till you make it thing. Here are the behaviors that make you attractive. Go practice them. And then you practice them and they work for a little while. But eventually, they stop working. There's a very famous PUA coach, I'm not going to tell you who, but the joke in the industry is always that he's a really cool guy for 3 weeks. And then he starts repeating himself because he only has 3 weeks worth of cool material. And so he just starts repeating the same stories and doing the same things. So pickup as a performance is unsustainable. Eventually, even if you get a super hot girlfriend, even if you get laid a bunch, eventually you have to come back and deal with the emotional stuff underneath. And what I found out on accident years ago is that the emotional stuff is the actual problem. The emotional stuff is why we're actually here. So let's talk about how we actually perform. There are a few ways we perform, and basically performance is displaying yourself differently than you actually are or you actually feel. So, oh, and by the way, I'm going to be an asshole and I'm going to contradict like half of everything that guy said and a lot of people say. So, if you don't agree with me, that's okay. First way we perform is act disinterested when you're not. Another way we perform is, I told you. I'm kind of glad he left, he's really big. Second way we perform is we exaggerate ourselves. Pickup guys are experts at both of these. We used to joke, when I started my business, I started it with another guy, and we used to do boot camps, and we used to joke how it was like, you know, we'd approach a girl, and she'd be like, oh, hi, nice to meet you, but sorry, you know, I have a boyfriend. It's like, oh, dude, she was so into me, she gave me like 6 IOIs, and she totally wanted to make out, but, you know, I went for the pole instead, and then, so she like blew me out, but fuck her. Like, it's this idea that the littlest thing you turn into this like massive epic story to kind of blow yourself up. Another way we perform is we are pickup guys don't do this. This is what we usually did. Nice guys do this. You're too agreeable. Everything she says, you're like, oh, that's great. That's really great. No, whatever you want to do. We'll do what you want to do. This is also performance. Because it's not real. You're not representing your own desires. And then the last way we perform is we hide our faults. You know, we don't talk about cool. We don't talk about those things. We pretend they didn't happen. We avoid them. And these are all, and look, we all do this. It's impossible not to. But the thing is when we get in front of attractive women we like, we do them extra. Because we're trying to create this image of ourselves that they're attracted to. So why doesn't performance work? We already said that, one, it's unsustainable. It lasts for an hour, a day, a week, maybe a month. But two, people aren't stupid. People can read your intentions. People can look at you and say, well, he says he's acting like he doesn't like me, but he keeps coming back and talking to me. They can look at the sub-communication of your behavior. They look at the motivation behind your behavior. Yeah, he says he doesn't like me, but I'm the only girl he's talking to. Why is that? The reasons of your actions are far more important than your actual actions. And we all pick up on this. Everybody here has experienced a time where somebody is trying to impress you, or trying to make you think that they're cool. And it's really annoying. You're like, get away from me. Stop talking to me. Relax. It's unattractive. But the biggest reason that performance doesn't work is it implies that you're inferior. Because if you were as high value as she was, you wouldn't have to perform to make her attracted to you. And this is, you see this, I see this all the time in the industry. You know, guys say, well, she's a hot girl, she gets hit on by guys every day. Yeah, those guys suck. I'm cooler than those guys. So I don't have to pretend like I don't like her. Those other guys are performing. 99% of men out there are performing every day. Even with their wives, their girlfriends, people in their families, they're performing all the time. Because they feel inferior. They feel like they have to win over the affection of people around them. They feel like they have to win over sex of women that they meet. But if you just show up and you see yourself already on the same level, she's going to see you on the same level too, because she never meets guys who feel that way. Now, why do we... I hope nobody here is getting insulted, because we all grow up feeling like this. We all grow up feeling like we're not worth... We have to win over the sex of different women. Why is this? Well, for one, culture fucks us. What is every movie you've ever seen? Every movie you've ever seen is knight in shining armor, or Luke Skywalker, or Arnold Schwarzenegger has to blow up tons of shit, kill a bunch of people, save the world, and what is his reward?
Get the girl.
A hot girl. We're constantly told our entire lives that you have to save the fucking world to get a vagina. But it fucks women too, because women are told their entire lives, a man is going to save the world for my vagina. I can't wait for my Prince Charming to come save the world for my vagina. And so what happens? Men walk around saying, damn, I have to do something to impress her. And women stand around saying, shit, when is a guy going to impress me? we're missing each other completely. The other reason that a lot of us feel this is that we just have bad prior experiences. How many people here have got screwed over by an ex-girlfriend, ex-wife? Right. How many people here were pretty much rejected like their entire teenage years? Right. It's like the entire room. That's why we end up here. And I noticed this with guys I started coaching. It was the same story over and over again. It was all of my clients were either 22-year-old virgin or 32-year-old guy who got fucked over by his ex-wife. It was always those two guys. There's no in between. This is what attracts us here. This is why we're in this room. This is why I'm in this room. Because I felt this way too. I felt like I had to prove something. You don't have to prove anything. Not to girls, not to people in this room, not to some jackass on a forum. You're fine the way you are. The goal here is happiness. It's not lay counts. It's not lay reports. It's not getting a HB 8.76. It's just being happy. It's being comfortable with yourself. It's having awesome relationships with awesome women who make you happy, who don't give you a headache, who don't call you 40 times a fucking day saying, I thought you liked me. Because that's where performance gets you. The only girls who respond to performance are girls who perform. I see a lot of guys in the industry, or in the community rather, who are always complaining. Women are so dramatic, they're so emotional, they're so manipulative. Yeah, because you're fucking manipulating them. It's the only girls that it works on. Girls who are not emotional or dramatic or manipulative say, fuck this guy. He's trying to impress me. Cannot write. Performance equals. Performance equals pedestal. If you're performing, you're putting her on a pedestal. Even if you're being a total dick while you're performing, you're putting her on a pedestal. She's like, oh, well, I gotta be a dick, so she'll like me. Pedestal. Anytime you're not thinking to yourself, I'm cool just as how I am, and if she doesn't like me, fuck her, you're putting her on a pedestal. By the way, this isn't just women, this is people. This is people in your life, this is friends, family. You got a friend who you always feel like you have to impress or perform for? Fuck that guy. The other problem with always feeling like you have to prove something is that it reinforces, it actually makes you feel worse. There's a reason that Mystery tried to kill himself twice. There's a reason Tyler Durden tried to kill himself. There's a reason Sin tried to kill himself. It's because performing and fucking hundreds of women to do it, it sends the message over and over, the real you is not good enough. Sure, you fucked 150 women, but you were not good enough for these 150 women. It just doubles the pain. Don't tell Sin I said that. Okay, let's talk about anxiety. I'm done ranting. because everybody here feels anxiety, right? Everybody here is struggling with anxiety in some situation at the moment. Maybe some of you guys can approach, maybe some of you guys can escalate, but everybody in here right now is struggling with some sort of anxiety or not. Now, the anxiety comes from this feeling of inferiority. It comes from this feeling like you're not good enough, because it's just classic psychology. When you don't feel good enough, you get nervous, you get a fight or flight response. And so that's where the anxiety comes from. I personally suffered massively from approach anxiety in meeting new people. And it took me a long time to realize that when I was a kid, actually when I was about 13, I got in a lot of trouble at school. I got kicked out of school, and all of my old friends at school stopped. They weren't allowed to talk to me or hang out with me. I then went to a new school with a bunch of uptight rich kids who were total assholes. And so I spent about 2.5 years of my life with no friends, and everybody I tried to make friends with at my new school rejected me. And so I grew up without even knowing it, this feeling like people who don't already know me don't like me and they don't want to meet me. It created a lot of social anxiety in myself. I was scared to death. It didn't matter if it was a guy, girl, ugly, attractive, old, young. I was terrified. Terrified to meet him. I used to get hammered. I used to drink so much just to talk to somebody. That's my story. Everybody here has their own story. Some people have a lot of anxiety around sex. You know, maybe they grew up in a very religious home. You know, maybe something fucked up happened to their sister. You know, whatever. We all have painful things in our past that cause the anxiety in us. It's what causes us to see ourselves as below the other people. So, what do we do when we're anxious? Other than drink a lot. What's that?
Get someone call me because of drinking, of course.
When we get anxious, when we get scared, we have ways to cope with it. We have defense mechanisms. We all have our own defense mechanisms. I guarantee you everybody in here is very familiar with this. And one thing, probably one of the most valuable things I can give you in my 2 hours today is teach you how to see these in yourself, because these are what are stopping you. This is what's stopping you. So, let's start with an obvious one. Avoidance. We feel anxiety, and so we come up with reasons to avoid the situation. Everybody's familiar with this one. Oh, I'll approach her. I'm just going to go to the bathroom first. Oh, look, she's talking to somebody else. Damn, I'm so going to talk to her. Or, yeah, I'll start approaching. I'm just going to get a drink first. Or, the good old, I'll call her tomorrow. And then the next day, oh, I'll call her tomorrow. And then 6 days later, I'll call her tomorrow. And you never actually end up calling her. We've all experienced this. And I think of all the defense mechanisms, this one's the most obvious. This is the one that you guys are, I mean, everybody here knows your own bullshit. Like, you know when you're full of shit. We all do. We all know we're like, oh, I'm being a pussy. And it's hard. It's very hard. Another common one. Rationalization. This may not be a direct translation. I'll put another word for it. Intellectualization. Rationalization or intellectualization. We all are familiar with this one, I'm sure, too. I mean, one could kind of argue that all that fucking pickup theory. I mean, have you ever looked at, I mean, I don't know about you guys, I used to read a lot of products and download seminars. Have you ever looked like, wow, what do I need 2,000 pages and 40 hours of seminar? It's just a fucking girl. Is it really that complicated? Thing is, it's not. But as long as we're intellectualizing and analyzing, we feel like we're accomplishing something. But we're actually not. How many of you guys, and by the way, I'm totally guilty. I was guilty of this for years, so don't be ashamed. How many of you guys go out together, like go out with your wingmen, and then you just stand in a little circle and talk about game for like 2 hours? Just like analyze, like, thank you for being honest. We all do it. We all do it. It's like, it's funny actually. In New York, actually, a girl came to one of my talks, and I was talking to her afterwards, and she told me, she's like, it's funny. I always thought that, because like a bunch of guys raise their questions and ask questions, and they're like, yeah, I can't approach, or I can't escalate, or I can't get a date, and she came up to me afterwards. She's like, that's funny, because I thought pickup artists were like getting laid all the time. And I'm like, no, if you went out with pickup artists, you see, they all stand in the corner, their drink, talking about game, talking about theory, talking about analyzing every set. Here's a good one. Another defense mechanism. Blame, anger. Culpa y raiva. Right? Culpa y raiva. A lot of us, when we're anxious, we try to blame somebody else for it. We blame the venue. Oh, this venue sucks. We blame the girls. Say, yeah, all the girls that come to clubs are bitches. It's obviously their fault that they don't like me. This can get pretty deep. And over the years, I've run into a lot of, the thing about blame and anger is if you do it long enough, you create beliefs. And these beliefs can be pretty fucked up. They can be very sexist. They can be racist. They can just make you an asshole. But it's a form of protecting yourself. And then finally, indifference. When we convince ourselves that we don't care about something when we actually really care. This one happens a lot. This one used to happen to me. Again, back when I started and I had a lot of approach anxiety, I used to go out to bars, and it was funny, I'd spend the entire week reading game, studying theory, posting on forums, and then Friday night would come, and I'd go out to the bar, and I'd stand there and be like, yeah, I don't really care, I don't really want to approach. And then I'd go, and then like on Monday, I'd be like, why the fuck didn't I approach? I'd be so angry at myself. But in the moment, I convinced myself, oh, I don't care. Another popular one with this is, are the guys who convince themselves that none of the women are attractive. You know, they sit online and you know, jerk off 3 times a day, and then you put them in a bar in front of hot girls, and they're like, yeah, they're not hot. Sure, buddy. Sure. I coached a 25-year-old virgin once, and the first night we went out, he told me that none of the girls were hot enough for him, and I'm like, buddy, you do not get to choose. In English, we have a saying: it's beggars cannot be choosers. Yeah. So everybody can see themselves in these, right? It's not pleasant, but we all do it. So how do we overcome our anxiety? This is usually when the guys are like, oh, come on. Bullshit. We overcome our anxiety when we stop feeling inferior through vulnerability. It's completely counterintuitive or paradoxical. It sounds like this would make it worse. It actually makes it better. Because think about it. It all comes back to the subcommunication. If you're hiding everything that you think is bad about you, if you're trying to make yourself sound better, what does that tell her unconsciously? It tells her that you don't feel good enough. But if you're just open about your problems and your faults or things that are unattractive about you, what does that tell her?
Tells us that you are a normal guy.
Right. Tells her that you're comfortable with your faults, that you're comfortable with yourself. Tells her that you're not trying to impress her. Everybody is always going on about you have to be high value, you have to demonstrate value. The way you demonstrate value is not demonstrating value. A rich guy doesn't have to go around saying, I'm rich. Hey, everybody, look, I'm rich. Nobody does that.
Don't you think that when you show your faults, your DHVs will look much better? Because it's not like you said, you're not trying to impress her. Just get from this point to make your life consistent.
See,
This is how I see it. Maybe I'm wrong.
you're looking at it in terms of like surface conversation. So yeah, if you talk about something that maybe is unattractive about you, and then you talk about something that's attractive about you, yeah, it can make it look better. But what I'm talking about is the motivation behind it. So if you go from being very honest and open about yourself, and then suddenly you try to impress her, then it's going to make you look bad, always. This is a question I always ask guys, is what's the difference between DHV and bragging? You know bragging? Yeah. What's the difference? Right. And what is it about people who brag? People who brag are annoying because they want you to think that they're cooler than they are. It's like, the example I always give about DHVs is, I had a good friend years ago, back when I was doing the pickup stuff and I was trying the DHV all the time. And he was a lead singer in a rock band. Guy had tattoos all over him. He toured all around the United States. And we used to meet girls, and he would talk to them for like an hour before telling them that he was in a rock band. And I remember trying, and he got laid a lot more than I did. But of course I tried to explain to him that he should be DHVing all the time. And he was like, no, that's weird. He's like, that just comes across as try hard. And what he used to do is he would talk to the girl for about 30 minutes, and then he would ask her where she's from. And she would say, like, oh, I'm from Philadelphia. And he would say, oh, I really like Philadelphia. I was there a year ago. She'd say, oh, why were you there a year ago? He's like, oh, my band played there. So what part of Philadelphia are you from? And he's not hiding anything. He's not pushing it in her face. He's just comfortable with who he is. He's interested in who she is. Where was I? Vulnerability. Right, so if you're not trying to prove yourself, what you're sub-communicating to her is that you're already good enough for her. You're not a guy who's intimidated by her. This is the other difference with hot girls. You know, in pickup theory, they say, oh, hot girls get hit on all the time, so you have to do all this stuff to impress them. The thing is hot girls intimidate every guy that they ever meet. If you're the one guy that she doesn't intimidate, then you're already more attractive than every other. You don't even have to say anything. You don't even have to be like, I'm in a rock band. Just like, hi, my name's Mark. Where are you from? Oh, you're a model. That's cool.
Just one question. In practical terms, for instance, how would you open a set with that mindset?
Yeah. The important thing about all of this is that, and this is the whole point I make in my book, is that any behavior can be attractive or unattractive. So any opener you have, any DHV you have, anything you say, anything you do, it can be attractive or unattractive. What determines whether it's attractive or not is the situation and the intention behind it. So I can say the most attractive thing in the world, but if I'm trying really hard to impress her, I'm going to be unattractive. And I can say the most unattractive thing in the world, which I have some examples here in a minute, but if my motivation is genuine and I'm just trying to share myself with her without making an impression, then it becomes attractive. So, so the benefits of sharing yourself openly. Well, actually, let's start here. There are 3 types of vulnerability. It's behavioral vulnerability. For instance, approaching is a vulnerable behavior. Anytime you approach a girl, you're setting yourself up to be rejected. You're making your intentions clear. There's verbal vulnerability, which is when you share your ideas or thoughts. Anytime you share something that's part of yourself, you're setting yourself up, you're opening yourself up to be rejected or for somebody to disagree with you. And then there's emotional vulnerability, which is when you openly express your feelings or your desires. So, obviously, you're really hot, I want to have sex with you, is a very vulnerable statement. Men tend to think that vulnerability is a sign of weakness, but it's actually the greatest sign of strength. Vulnerability plus responsibility equals strength. Vulnerability without responsibility. So I'll give you an example. Like I said, when I was a teenager, I was picked on a lot, and I didn't have any friends. Now, if I'm talking to a hot girl I just met, and I'm telling her about this, say, yeah, when I was a teenager, I was a dork and nobody liked me. And
I do that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I say, yeah, and the world sucks, and it's their fault that I wasn't confident, and bitches, then it just makes me look like an angry, butthurt guy. It's very unattractive. But if I say, yeah, I got picked on when I was a teenager, and I didn't have any friends, and that taught me to be independent and to take care of myself, and being rejected, even though it hurt, being rejected is, in the long term, one of the best things that happened to me. It makes me look very attractive. I had a client a couple years ago who he was a recovered alcoholic, and he called me on the phone and he said, "Mark, I've got this problem. I'm doing well with women, but I start to go on dates with them, and they start asking me about my past, and I was an alcoholic for 6 or 7 years. I was a total fuck up. I was drunk all the time. I had no job. I had no money. I don't know what to say to them. Like, I try to make jokes about it. I try to avoid the subject, but it always gets awkward. And when I do tell them, like, it's very unattractive. And so I told them, I said, you know, if you're going to date these women, if you're going to have a woman who makes you happy and that you feel comfortable around, she needs to accept this part of you. And so you might as well tell her early instead of late. And so he said, okay, so what should I say? And I said, you should take responsibility for it. You should say, I was an alcoholic, but I have not had a drink in 6 years. It taught me a lot about myself. It showed me how much my family loves me, and I promised myself I'll never make that mistake again. And he said, okay, I'll go try that. And this is right around the time I was experimenting with a lot of just being completely open and honest about my intentions. Well, he came back to me a few months later, and he sent me an email, and he said, hey Mark, I've been doing what you said, and it's been incredible. So not only are they okay with it, but they appreciate that I'm telling them. It makes them trust me more. And actually, it's creating some of the best conversations I've ever had on dates in my life, because they start telling me things about themselves. He said, I had no idea how many people struggled with stuff like this. How many people had like dark things in their past. And that's the fucked up thing, is that we all have painful things in our past, and we all have really deep insecurities, but we're all afraid to go around and talk about them. Because we all think everybody else is perfect and everybody else is okay. But if we're the first ones who are willing to open up and just talk about it, it makes other people feel comfortable talking about it. And that's a greater value that you can give somebody than the best line, the best joke, best orgasm. It means so much more than that. So, I'll give you a more normal example, more pickup example. When I really started to notice that I was kind of onto something with this, was I was out one night and I was at a restaurant, and there was a girl sitting at the bar with a book open, and she was really cute. And so of course I did the same thing that we all do in that situation, which is I ordered another drink and sat there for 15 minutes and tried to think of a cool pickup line. And finally I came up with a clever joke, and I decided to go walk over to her and say it to her. And I don't remember what the joke is. All you need to know is that it was really horrible. It was not funny. Yes. So it's something to do with like a nerd in a bar. And anyway, so I go over and I say it to her, and she kind of gives me this look like, God. And you know, of course, I'm starting to freak out. I'm like, oh God, I just get blown out hard. And before she could say anything, I just come out and I say, look, that joke was really stupid. Can I try again? She was like, please try again. I'm like, so I'm like, was actually about how many guys come up and say awkward things to her, or women in general. And she told me, she's like, you know, if more guys just came up and introduced themselves and asked if they could sit down, I would be okay with it. It wouldn't put pressure on me to constantly like find a way to reject them all the time. So, the final benefit and the most important benefit of vulnerability is that you get rid of that reinforcement that you have to perform. As soon as you start removing that belief that you have to perform, and suddenly you start reinforcing the idea that you're already as good as anybody you meet or anybody you talk to. And ultimately, that's going to be the most attractive thing about you. Now, there are two mistakes. I write a lot about vulnerability in my book. I give a lot of talks about it. There are two mistakes. A lot of guys are like, awesome, that sounds great. I'm just going to go start saying and expressing whatever I want, whatever I feel. There are a few mistakes that guys run into. It's fucking hot.
Yes, it's not working, so. No, but they don't.
Okay, mistakes. The first mistake guys make is that they think that vulnerability is another technique. So they think, oh, I don't need to learn lines anymore. I just need to go out and say all this personal stuff, and then girls will like me. And it comes back to they're still trying to perform. Sometimes I get emails from guys, and they say, hey Mark, I tried vulnerability, it doesn't work. I went on a date with this girl, and I told her all about how my dog died and how sad it made me, and she still didn't fuck me. I'm like, dude, that's not the point. It's not a technique. And the way you know, is what's your intention? Your intention has to be unconditional. So whatever you say or do has to be done with no expectation in return. So many men, and this is pickup guys and non-pickup guys, so many men have this expectation that women, for some reason, owe them something. Say, oh, I took her out to a nice show and we had a nice dinner and the bitch didn't even call me back. Well, she doesn't owe you anything. This is not a transaction. Sex is not a transaction. One of my favorite lines actually came from a female friend of mine. She said that sex is a team sport. Sex is a collaboration. Seduction is not a one-person game. It's not about one person pushing their finger against the other person. It's about getting both your needs met. And that happens through collaborating. And the minute you start making your actions conditional, as soon as you start thinking, well, I'm going to tell her that she looks pretty tonight, but she better give me a compliment too. Or I'm going to do this nice thing for her, but she better do something nice for me too. Or, damn, I tried to nag her and she just got mad and left. Whenever your behaviors are motivated by an if-then, for all you computer nerds, It's not vulnerability. It's performance. So mistake number 2. Something I call emotional vomit. A lot of men, they read the book, they get the idea, they're like, sweet, vulnerability, gonna go out, express myself, I don't care what she thinks, I just want to attract women who like me for me. And so they go out, and next thing you know, they've spent like 45 minutes going on and on and on about how much they hate their mother or something like that. And the girl is just terrified. The other form that this takes is that a lot of guys are like, oh, cool, I can just express my emotions. So I'm going to write a 10-page love letter to this girl I haven't even kissed yet. Obviously that doesn't end well. And so this is the other email I get. So I say, Mark, I read your book, vulnerability is awesome, it's made a big difference in my friendships. And so I decided to tell this girl how I felt, and I wrote her a 10-page love letter, and she never talked to me again. And it's like, well, how long have you been dating her? Oh, we don't date. How long have you known her? Well, we don't really know each other. The problem with emotional vomit, and emotional vomit happens to us, it's part of the process, is that emotional vomit happens when there's some sort of underlying issue. And so it's necessary to identify the issue and get over it. To give you an example from my life, there was a girl that I was seeing for a while, and she and I had really, this is back in my player days when I was fucking a lot of girls, but there was this one girl that just really had a very intense chemistry. And I felt very strongly about. She was actually the first one that I felt very, very strongly about after getting into pickup. And one night we were staying up late, and we were talking until like 3, 4 in the morning. And I started talking about my ex-girlfriend, the one who cheated on me and left me. And before I knew it, I had been going on for like an hour and a half about how much of a raging whore she was and how she ruined my life. And this girl just looked at me and she's like, maybe you didn't need to tell me that. And it made it awkward. And I stopped seeing that girl. And actually it was a little bit awkward the few times I ran into her after that. And so it'd be easy for me to say, oh, vulnerability doesn't work. But the pain of that experience caused me to realize, wow, I'm really angry about my ex-girlfriend. I buried that. I didn't realize that. I'm angry about my ex-girlfriend, and it's making me angry about other girls too. That's something I need to deal with. That's something I need to get over. And it allowed me to start thinking about it and evaluating it. I actually got an email from a guy in Germany just a few days ago who had one of these experiences. He did one of the, write a 10-page love letter things. And he said that it was, he basically wrote this huge love letter, and the girl was like, thanks. And he was crushed for about a week. And he said he was very angry about it. But then he said after about a week, he started thinking about the situation, and he was like, it's completely ridiculous that I felt that strongly about her so soon. Why do I feel so strongly about women like this so quickly? And he started to look at his own emotions and what was motivating him. And he sent me an email. He said it was a horrible experience, but he said I know a lot more about myself now. He said when I'm in a situation like that again, I'll be better at handling it. I'll be better at knowing what to expect from myself. And this is ultimately, this is the long-term fix. This is the long-term stuff. This is how you close that gap. You get rid of that anxiety. Is you deal with this shit. You deal with the emotional stuff. The lines are nice, they help sometimes, they make for cool stories. But ultimately, as long as you're performing, you're not dealing with the real problem. So, is there another mistake? I don't think so. Forgetting my own content. Alright, so finish up with how to practice vulnerability, and then we'll do some Q&A. So step one. Step one is to accept your anxiety. Accept that you have an issue around whatever makes you anxious. Because you can't fix what you don't acknowledge. If you pretend something doesn't exist and you try to cover it up, you never fix it. So, step one, look at whatever makes you anxious, whether it's approaching, dates, getting intimate, conversations, and ask yourself, why does this freak me out? Why does this make me so nervous? There's a lot of people in pickup talk about skill a lot. And my belief is that very little of this actually has to do with skill. I used to coach guys, and they would just have horrible set after a horrible set. And they'd come back to me and they'd say, yeah, I don't know how to have a funny conversation. I don't know how to talk to people. Like, I need to work on my skills. And I would always tell them, I'd say, you know, before we came out tonight, you and I spent 3 hours together, had a great conversation. You told me interesting stories about yourself. You made me laugh. The problem isn't your skills. The problem is you stand in front of a hot girl and your brain goes to shit. So accept what your problem is. Your problem is the fear. That also means acknowledging all your defense mechanisms. All the ways that you avoid it, all the ways that you rationalize it, all the blame or the anger that goes along with it. Come to terms with it. Accept it. The biggest thing for me in terms of getting over my approach anxiety, and I'm still not over it, I still get nervous, but it doesn't stop me anymore. The biggest thing that helped me was I accepted that I had approach anxiety. Because I spent years saying, when am I going to get over this? When am I going to beat this? When am I going to stop being nervous? And as long as I thought that, as long as I thought about that, it just made the anxiety stronger. And then one day, I figured, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to have this forever. That's just how I am. And strangely, it was okay. It's like, oh, I'm really nervous, but that's okay. That sounds a little weird, but when you experience it, you'll know. So second step is to act despite the anxiety. Like I said, once you accept it, it becomes a lot easier to act in spite of it. Because you're not dedicating all this thought to I have to stop being nervous, I have to stop being this. And look, there's a lot of stuff out there that says you can get rid of your approach anxiety, you can get rid of your sexual anxiety, you can be fearless and all this stuff. It's bullshit. Fear is a natural human response. Anxiety is a natural human response. The only thing that changes is how you react to it. You can react poorly to it and freak out, or you can react really well and use the anxiety to push you further, push you to act despite it. Now, this is obviously really hard. And we fuck this up all the time. I mean, this piece of advice is like almost kind of pointless because we all know to do it. So, one of three things happens when you try to act despite it. First thing that can happen is that you pussy out. Now, we've all bitched out a lot. And when you bitch out, if you find yourself pussying out a lot, everybody read this? It says, break it down. So, I'll use approaching since it's an easy example and a lot of people relate to it. If you're consistently bitching out of approaching, and you consistently don't do it, the strategy you can use is break down the action into smaller chunks. So instead of going out and saying, I have to approach tonight, simply go out and say, okay, I'm going to ask 3 people what time it is. Or I'm going to ask 3 people for directions to some restaurant that I already know where it is. This at least gets you going through the motions and going through part of the behavior. Then once that doesn't scare you that much anymore, then you can move up. And you can say, okay, now I'm going to ask 3 hot girls for directions. And you can push through that. And then once you've done that, then you can actually approach them and hit on them. Does that make sense for everybody? That's an important thing. Cool. Second thing that can happen is you do it. You do it, and it's really awkward. Everybody knows that anxiety makes you do awkward things. Awkward conversations, stand there nervously, doing weird things with your fingers. If you do it and it's awkward, and by awkward I mean it's so awkward that it's like causing problems, the way you deal with this is you just simply acknowledge the awkwardness. You simply say, look, I'm really nervous right now, but I think you're really cute. If you're in bed and you're freaking out, you actually say, look, it's been a while since I've done this. I'm a little bit nervous, we should go slow. Now, I know this goes against the whole, like, you gotta be the fucking man, and you gotta fuck her 8 ways from Tuesday. You'll bust all over her face, oh. That's not what sex is like most of the time. Especially if you have sexual anxiety. The way you get over sexual anxiety is you acknowledge it, and you realize it's not a big deal. Every guy deals with some sort of sexual anxiety at some point. And you know what? Every girl has dealt with a guy who had sexual anxiety at one point. Girls don't give a shit. They're like, thank God he finally admitted it. Thank God a guy admitted it. Girls are sick of guys trying to hide their insecurities. They don't care. It's not a big deal. Hell, sometimes they find it endearing. They're like, oh, sweet. I can take my time, enjoy it. It takes pressure off them too. There's a lot of pressure on people in our culture to be these sex machines. You know, we see it in movies, we see it in porno. The truth is that sex is a little bit awkward. People are a little bit insecure. Sex is also usually a little bit emotional. That's normal. So don't try to deny it. So yeah, if it gets a little bit awkward, just say, hey, a little bit awkward right now, but that's okay. If you accept it, she'll accept it. And then finally, the third way that it can end up tubing. Everything's good. And the thing is if you do these things enough, eventually everything will be good. If you get accustomed to acknowledging what makes you anxious or what makes you feel weird, eventually it will stop making you feel weird. There are parts of my identity that back in 2007, 2006, I was scared to death to tell a girl about. But after I did it enough times and realized that it wasn't a big deal, now it doesn't bother me anymore. So there were things like 7 years ago that I was very nervous about sharing with a girl. But I did, and after time, it's not a problem anymore. Eventually everything turns out okay. But this is the only way to deal with it. This is the only way to deal with the real problem. Oh, hello.
See.
It's actually my ex-girlfriend. You could really fuck with her.
That's the one they call 40 times a day, right?
So yeah. So the ultimate goal here is to build real and lasting confidence. And hey guys, almost done.
Sorry.
Yeah. So the ultimate goal here is to build real and lasting confidence, to eliminate that gap of perception that you have between you and hot girls. To get rid of that belief that culture has beat into us that we have to be something incredible to have sex. Just to have a normal human function that everybody has at some point in their life anyway. There's nothing incredible about it. You just have to be comfortable with it. The other beautiful thing about this, and about the vulnerability and the process of being vulnerable, is that it actually invites rejection. A lot of people freak out about rejection and they don't want to get rejected and they get really butthurt when it happens. But the thing is if you're operating out of a performance and somebody rejects your performance, you feel like shit. Because they're rejecting part of you. But when you're just being open and vulnerable and they reject you, it's not a rejection, it's just an incompatibility. Say, oh, that's good. She and I weren't going to get along anyway. You know, it's, if she has a problem that I used to be an alcoholic, then we don't belong together. And it wasn't going to be a happy relationship. If I feel like I have to hide something from her, or if I can't express myself around her, then I'm not going to enjoy being around her. And when you start setting these boundaries and start becoming comfortable with the rejection as it comes, then it builds this real and lasting confidence. Nothing can shake you. No, like, some girl gives you attitude and you're just like, yeah, we're not compatible. And you don't even have to tell her that. You just know. This girl's not right for me. So I'm going to move on and go find one that is. And when you're not performing, you stop attracting the women that are performing. You stop attracting the women that are playing games. And you start attracting women with high self-esteem and high confidence and who have a lot going for them. And those relationships are much better. So that's all I got. I guess we'll do question and answer for like 30 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever, as long as you guys want.
Mark, I want to make an example.
Okay.
If you are
It's not my fault.
if you were to be on the street, the girl is coming for you.
Mhm.
How would you approach the girl? She's walking.
You mean
we
with...
call day game. We call this day game to
Right.
the girl. The girl is coming.
Right. I don't...
She doesn't look at you. She doesn't look at you. She's passing. But you feel the urge because, oh my God, she's so... I have to go. I have to go.
Yeah.
What you... I just try that most of the times, like... I saw you over there.
that's true. I mean, it's if she doesn't like that, I mean, you're not gonna.
That's why I'm asking. What is?
I mean, that's how I approach dating.
What is the best technique?
So
More efficient.
right. So the line. I mean, I basically I say the same thing. I say, "Excuse me, this is random, but I think you're cute and I want to meet you." The thing about day game, the thing you have to remember about day game, is that they're not expecting to be talked to. They have no idea who you are or why you're there. So in day game, trust is a lot more important. And the biggest problem, like the biggest rule about day game is don't scare her, like ever. Be extra polite. Don't try to be like all alpha and in their face. Be extra polite. Give them space. Don't touch them. Because as soon as you startle a woman during the daytime, she's gone. But the line itself, I say the same thing. I say, excuse me, I don't say that exactly, but I say, the thing I always say during or used to say during daytime is, excuse me, this is a little bit random, but I think you're cute and I wanted to say hello. And then I stick my hand out. I think what you're saying might come off as a little intense. And so like,
Excuse me, this is a little bit random, but I think you are really cute, and I want to talk to you. This way.
and give them a little bit of space. Don't. Whole idea is to not start it.
Transition after it's what comes after this. What you gotta do. Or you can say just hello.
Yeah.
What comes is.
And then I say, where are you from? What's your name? Where are you from? Just talk. She's a person. It's good?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Biggest thing is just don't startle her. That's the number one mistake guys make with dating. They startle.
You have some mechanic.
Huh?
The girl can scan passing for you. You do some kind of move. Because from the blueprint again. I think that's amazing. I'm saying this because from blueprint again, he goes running, then he makes some hook, and he gets in front of her. He stops the girls. They don't have any option.
Yeah, I just don't think you should think about it too. You're gonna get rejected. Day game, you're gonna get rejected probably by 50% at least on the approach.
One more.
Yeah. So it's just do whatever, man. Stop trying to impress them. Like, hey, what's your name?
One. Sometimes.
It's fun. Day game is all about being very relaxed, being very just having a normal conversation. Because the whole thing with day game is it's a test to see how normal you are. So I would say don't say bon. It's just trust is huge during the daytime.
One of the main concepts you have in your writings is the concept of demographics.
Yeah.
As you didn't talk about it, could you please talk a bit on that?
Okay. So demographics is really, really important. It's basically the idea that you attract what you are. And this is true both superficially and then also emotionally. So if you're nerdy and out of shape and like anime, you're going to naturally attract girls girls who are nerdy, out of shape, and into anime. Which is fine, except if you want, like, you know, some like swimsuit model. And the idea behind demographics is that instead of trying to convince women who aren't normally interested in you to be interested in you, instead of performing, the idea is to change to become the type of man that you want to be. So, this also has a lot of effect on where you are, where you're meeting women. There are a lot of guys who are in the pickup who are very intellectual, they don't drink, they don't dance, they don't like electronic music, yet they go to nightclubs every week. And they don't have any success. And it's like, well, of course, because you don't like anything about being there except for the girls. And it's going to come out in your attitude, it's going to come out in how you feel, and it's going to make you a lot needier and a lot more desperate. So go where you like to be. You know, if you're really into tennis, like join a tennis group. If you like, you know, if you're really into film, like join some sort of independent film crew. Start meeting women in the places that you're interested in, because it's going to eliminate a lot of the gap and a lot of the feeling like you need to perform to impress them or something like that. On an emotional level, demographics works in that if you're very needy, then you will attract women who are very needy. If you're very manipulative, you'll attract women that are very manipulative. That make sense?
There's a like this concept that probably confuses everybody around in the pickup community. That is, the shit test. And I know that you have like a different approach on that.
Yeah, I don't really believe in shit tests. I think men get a little paranoid. I think it comes back to shit. Where is it?
Looking for the pen?
Yeah, it comes back to the anger blame thing. The whole idea of a shit test is that a woman is trying to see if you're congruent with who you're portraying. If you're not performing anything, there's nothing to shit test. You know, like if you're not trying to brag about something, she's not going to test you about it. And if you are being real and honest, and she does question it, you're going to have no problem being like, no, actually that's how I am. I think shit testing is just basically, it's general skepticism of strangers. You know, it's like if you met a guy on the side of the road and he started telling you about how he's in a rock band, you'd probably be like, what band? Really? Like, where have you been? So it's just honest skepticism, and I don't see it as a big problem. And if I do feel like a girl is like intentionally trying to fuck with me or kind of piss me off, I reject it. So that's no problem.
Okay, I have a question. You mainly do direct game. You're honest with the girls and vulnerable. Do you ever nowadays use indirect game or something that you would decide?
I don't think of it anymore in terms of game. I just talk. And I try to express myself as honestly as possible, and sometimes that means that I'm very upfront, like I'm like, you're very beautiful, I want to meet you. Sometimes that means I don't say that for a while, but if I'm feeling attracted or if I'm very interested in her, I'm always willing to say it, and I always do say it. So I guess you could call it direct game, but I guess if indirect game is hiding how you feel, then yeah, I don't ever do indirect game.
But in terms of opening also, you're also always open going for the...
I open whatever I feel like. Sometimes I say stupid things, but you know, like whatever I feel in the moment, really.
For example,
I say, hi, my name's Mark. I want to meet you. And he's like, okay, how do you approach during nighttime? I say, hi, my name's Mark. I want to meet you. And I say, how do you approach the social circle? I say, hi, my name's Mark. I want to meet you. Who's gonna say no to that? And if she does, fuck her. I don't know. More girls.
With this mindset of honesty, you are less women on your life, but
More.
with more quality.
More women, more quality. And in quality, both in terms of how attractive they are, and also mental stability. Yeah, I mean, I have a girlfriend now, but last year I got laid just as much as the most my peak, and I was only going out like once a week, but it wasn't effort. It was just, hey, I'm here. Hi, what's your name? You're pretty. Here. It sounds, and I know how it looks. It looks way too simple, and it looks like, oh, well, that's easy for him to say. But it's just this idea. You don't have to ever prove anything. You don't ever need permission to say hello. You don't ever need permission to tell a girl that she's pretty. You don't ever need permission to say, let's go back to my place. You don't need the trick. You don't just say, got this awesome rock you should see. Come back to my place. It's, come home with me. Why? I want to have sex with you. But I just met you. Okay. We'll go on a date. Okay. It's fine. It's like, so simple.
If you're a guy who is more introverted or so, it's not a problem actually, because like me, most of the time I'm pretty happy actually to just shut up and just sit there and listen or watch. Is that a problem or?
I don't think so. It's just going to determine the kind of women that you meet.
Yeah.
This comes back to the demographics. So if you're a very introverted guy, you're going to be, in the pickup community, there's kind of this gold standard of like club girl with like fake hair and all this shit. That's not the right girl for most people. And so it's really just a matter of finding the right kind of woman for you. But yeah, introversion is not a problem at all. What's important isn't so much whether you're an introvert or not. What's important is that in situations where you either want to speak up or you feel you need to speak up, that you're capable of doing it. No, you don't have to prove anything, man.
Mike, last night I approached a girl because of this. My friend told me, let's start the war. And I was just chilling out, seeing the dogs. Yeah, of course. Yeah. And I approached a girl and I say, you are one of the most precious babes out here in Portuguese. In Portuguese this way.
Yeah.
Olha, não é só. São as mulheres mais boas que está aqui no espaço. And the girl, she's this way. After maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes, there comes a bouncer to me and say, oh my God, what are you doing, my man? You approach a marriage. Women, we will not do that kind of things. Yeah, I'm sorry, my friend. I'm just here to chill out, to connect with other people. In fact, if the husband were there, I would also talk to the husband. Go call them. And they have just leave the place. So my question is the following: if you approach very sincere, you have some probability that sometimes the husband can talk with you. I have this scar because of that. Yeah. I approached the girl and the guy went
has to do with, this is what I found with boyfriends and husbands, and just other guys in general. For them, it's all about respect. So, if they feel like you're being disrespectful or disregarding them somehow, then they get upset. Really upset. But in my experience, most guys, at the worst, they'll kind of come over and they'll be like, "That's my girlfriend, fuck off." It's like, okay, bye. But it's when I've had problems and when the time that I didn't get beat up, but like I got punched in the face. The time I got punched, I was being very flirty, grabbing the girl, and her boyfriend was actually just like 10 feet away watching. And so he felt like I was being disrespectful to her. I was being too aggressive, and so he just came over and punched me. But, I mean, like I said, for me it's about being open and direct, but it's also being respectful of the other person's thoughts and feelings and stuff like that. So, there are crazy people out there. There are crazy guys who are very jealous, but such is life. The other thing I was going to say is just the act of being so direct and just coming out and saying, like I wasn't going to come out tonight, but I'm glad I did because you're really awesome and I like hanging out with you. Just being able to say things like that, or just saying like, yeah, you should come home with me because you're beautiful and we'd have fun in bed. Even when they say no, or even when they reject you, it creates attraction and respect. Yeah, tons of respect. And
How it creates attraction?
because you're being bold, you're showing that.
If it creates attraction, why the girl leave?
Huh?
If it creates respect, why the girl leave?
Because attraction is not enough. I mean, I'm attracted to girls every day, but I don't go fuck them. I have a girlfriend. Or I'm busy. I have shit to do.
Or they don't have an excuse because their friends are there. They don't want to be called bitches.
Or they just don't want to have sex yet. Or I'm leaving town in 3 days and I'm a nice guy, but they used to happen all the time. All the time.
Yeah, it's
Much
well, another explanation, you get 1 point for that, but so in order to get a kiss, you need like 3 or 5 points. So you have to accumulate more attraction.
Yeah, but I still think, I mean, I guess where I disagree is with kind of pickup theory in general, is attraction is not enough. Attraction is just one part of it. I mean, I don't want to have sex with every girl I'm attracted to. That'd be tiring. I'd get nothing done.
Send that to us.
People have lives.
About that thing that connect with many relationships at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
I see it in some way that I'm right now searching a little bit, because at the same time we are young, so when you grow up maybe you change your idea.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I mean, there's scientific evidence that people are capable of being sexually attracted to multiple people and being in love with multiple people at the same time. A lot of people take that to mean that we have to be polyamorous or that we're naturally polyamorous. I don't see that. I think a lot of people are very happy being monogamous. I think some people are very happy being polyamorous. I think it changes based on the person and on the need. I went through a phase, actually my relationship with my ex-girlfriend, the one you just called, was polyamorous. And at the time I thought it was awesome, but looking back 3 years later, to avoid dealing with them. But so yeah, I think it's not wrong, but it's just another choice. It's another life choice.
Yeah, because promiscuity, it's another thing when you can have a relation and you meet someone and you have one night stand and it ends there.
Yeah, I think for men in particular, I think men really need to go through a phase where they feel like they have a lot of sexual choices. And I think it's important for a lot of men to do that before they feel comfortable having serious relationships or committed relationships. So, but then there are people who don't feel a need to do that. So, you see a lot of stuff in the pickup community saying that guys are average frustrated chumps and that men are supposed to be promiscuous and not monogamous. And I don't buy that. I think people are different. I think people have different sex drives. People have different desires for partners. People have different desires for relationships. So, and people change as time goes on. So I think it's a personal choice. And I think if somebody wants to be polyamorous, that's okay. But if they don't, that's okay too.
It's also because of, even you see the statistics that in Western countries that there is a lot of betrays and outside of marriage and all that stuff, and you hear it a lot of times.
Yeah.
So I think it also influences you to behave and thinking, oh, why the hell I'm gonna marry a girl and living all the time with her.
It's
something that people think.
I mean, I think the one thing that is definitely true and that we finally kind of discovered is that the idea of lifelong marriage with one person and never being with anybody else, it's a minority of people. And so I don't think, again, there are a lot of people who make a lot of judgments about that. They say that we should be polyamorous, or that we should do this, or we should do that, or that society is fucked. I don't really believe any of those things. I just think that we're becoming more aware of our needs, and that I think it's just more important going forward. Even though the divorce rate is high now, people are more satisfied in their marriages today than they were like 30, 40 years ago. So I think knowing these things and being able to talk about them and deal with them, it's making things more complicated, but the people who do get married end up being happier and more stable because of it. Yeah.
When you see a girl that you are attracted to, you go straight to her, or you flirt with her from a distance a little bit before you go talking to her?
I usually just go talk to her.
Straight.
Yeah. What I've found with myself is the less I think about it, the better it goes. When it comes to approaching, the less I think about, well, she looked at me, should I look back, all this stuff. Usually, the sooner I go, the better it goes.
Yeah, let me ask you about like the process of overcoming anxiety.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, in the paper it looks beautiful, the scheme and everything.
Right.
Like, do you set goals for yourself? Like, do you force yourself to do these, or?
Yes.
Like, how did you develop to overcome it? You know, like.
So I think it's useful to set goals. I think you have to be careful though, because if you quantify your anxiety too much, it just makes it worse. So yeah, I did set goals, but for me it was more about. It was pretty loosely based. Like, I had a period for a few months where it was just go out 5 nights a week and just approach as much as I possibly can. And if I went out and I only approached once one night, I didn't get really upset about it. And then I'd go out and approach like 7 or 8 times the next night, and I'd feel good about it. But I never tried to measure it too much, because I think, and I've found in other guys that if you're measuring it too much, it can just create more anxiety. Because then you go out, like you know, let's say I go out and I decide I'm going to approach 10 girls, and I go out and I approach 8, and even though I feel great about approaching 8 girls, I'm putting pressure on myself. I'm still feeling bad because I didn't approach 10, and so that can actually increase anxiety in the long run.
One is, for example, let's say you set a goal for yourself, and you go to the club and you pursue it, yeah, and you say like you should break it down,
right?
So like you just go home and like, oh, I was, giving excuses to myself or something, and so you acknowledge the fact that you pussy it out. And what you
Absolutely, but I don't judge myself for it. That's the big
thing. Just say like next time I will do it, or
exactly. It's like, you know what? I bitched out again, but that's okay. Everybody bitches out sometimes, and I'll just do better tomorrow. You know, it's always you're competing with yourself, nobody else.
I think you wrote that game is a pretty emotional process rather than like
Totally.
Like a value game or so.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a bit? What exactly?
Right. So, this is the funny thing. A lot of pickup theory says, women make their decisions based on emotion. Women decide if they like you or if they're going to sleep with you. It's an emotional decision for her. What that they neglect is that it's also an emotional process, an emotional decision for us. So this is kind of what I was saying earlier about what you actually say or do can be attractive or unattractive. It really just comes down to why you're doing it and your self-perception while you're doing it. Because ultimately, a behavior or a line or a joke is only as successful as the emotions it creates in a girl. And there's no line that every girl has the same response to, emotional response to. There's no joke that every girl has the same emotional response to. There's no behavior that every girl has the same emotional response to. It's dependent on the context, and it's dependent on the motivations behind the behavior. So yeah, it's attraction itself is it's not a logical metric. It's not a logical decision. You never sit there and say, emotional connection is never a logical thing either. Your comfort with somebody is not a logical, it's not quantified. You just know, yes or no. Every guy knows, you look down the street and you just go yes or no, would you fuck her? Every guy, yes, no, yes. We don't sit there and, we like to sit there and be like, oh, she's a 7.3 or whatever. But ultimately, it's a yes or no decision. And when you're talking to her, the way she makes you feel affects that. If she's fun to be around and she makes you feel good about yourself, it affects that. It affects the yes or no answer. If you're drunk, it affects the yes or no answer. So it's an unconscious, illogical decision at all times. And the sooner you get away from trying to manipulate the logical perceptions, the rational perceptions of each other, and you start focusing on the irrational perceptions of each other, the better off you're going to be. Yeah.
Yeah, the three main myths from the pickup community. What will be your 3 main myths? And that's I was going to ask you also the 3 main beliefs that helped you most on your pickup career.
Wow. Well, 2 big questions. 3 myths. First one is you don't have to prove anything. You don't have to you don't need permission. You don't have to perform. I know I keep saying that, but I just want to hit people in the head. It's really hard to get that through your head. That's myth number one. Myth number two is that that having a lot of sex solves any problems, really, with anything. Sure, it makes you it's more fun to have a lot of sex, and it's more fun to fuck a lot of girls, but it doesn't make you necessarily happier. It doesn't make you more popular. It doesn't make you more friends. People don't treat you with more respect. It doesn't even create self-respect necessarily. It's just a fun thing.
You said when you have a lot of sex.
What's that?
You said when you have a lot of sex.
A lot of sex with a lot of girls.
Okay, of course, because when you have a lot of sex, it's good for it.
No, sex is great. I'm not saying sex is bad. Sex is great. I'm just saying that.
Not of course.
Yeah, the pickup community says that it solves all these life problems, and it doesn't. It doesn't solve life problems. It's a band-aid, basically. Third myth. Can't think of one. 3 beliefs that help me the most. Belief number 1 is that I am awesome as I already am, and I'm always trying to make myself more awesome. Part of that belief is that if a girl does not see how awesome I am or how awesome I can be, then I don't want to be with her anyway, so it's not my problem. Belief number 2 that helps me say that I'm capable of anything if I persist and keep trying. Belief number 3 is that everybody is my friend. Sometimes they just don't know it. Sweet! Awesome, thanks guys.
Okay.
So I had my tech guy make a web page especially for you. If you don't know, my site is called postmasculine.com. And I don't just write about pickup stuff and dating stuff, I write about psychology, confidence, self-esteem, career stuff, family stuff. But if you go to postmasculine.com/Portugal, all of my products are discounted there. And this will be up for about a week. The books I think are 25% off. And then I have some online coaching courses. One is to help you get over approach anxiety. One is to help you have better conversations with more depth and more interesting topics. And then one is on sexual confidence. All of those are available there. The first month is free. And I think that's it. But yeah, come to the site, check it out, comment, I have a forum. Help me practice my Portuguese.
One question. Will you join us for dinner?
What's that?
Will you join us for dinner?
Where's dinner?
Just like a restaurant